It's 9 a.m. and Bolton steeplejack Fred Dibner arrives at a demolition site near Monton in Manchester. The chimney Fred is working on today is approximately 100 feet high, and to prepare it for demolition has taken Fred a week. He starts by knocking out the bricks at the base of the chimney. In the spaces left by the bricks are inserted measured pieces of old telegraph pole. In this way, the chimney is supported.
Yeah, you see, before we actually remove this slit of brickwork out of the bottom, we drill 2 holes in the, one at the bottom there and one in the wall there, and then set this instrument to the distance of, the 2 holes are apart, and then proceed to remove the brickwork and prop it up with the props. And sort of as you're going round, you see, it's feeling the pain, the whole thing. And this gap is actually shutting up. It's a bit like being down pit. And then eventually you get to a stage where the 2 points will not fit in the holes. As you can see here, it's ½ an inch out of going in that hole, which means that this gap is now ½ an inch less than what it was when we first made it, which means that the whole thing is leaning this way, you see. And then also around the back, there is an horizontal crack in a bed joint, which is more or less in line with the top of this cut along here, you see.
The site where the chimney is to fall is cleared and made level so that when the chimney does fall, the flying bricks and mortar are kept to a minimum.
You're in? Oh, you're right there.
This job presents a real conflict for Fred, who would much rather be building or repairing a chimney than demolishing one. For Fred, the workmanship that has gone into building a monument like this should be kept forever, and he feels much sadness at its loss.
Yeah, this crack, you see, is telling us that the thing's definitely feeling the pain to go the right way. There's no way, not a chance in 1 million that the thing will go over there towards the canal, so we've really no worries, the job's over with as far as chopping the brickwork away at the other side. All we've got to do is hammer a crowbar in there and watch the end of it, and when there's 1,000 movement on that crack, the end of the crowbar, which will be over there, will start going down, and I will know when to blow me outer and retire to a safe place, hopefully. It's now time to build a bonfire. Where's these bloody rubber tyres, Oh, they're here, aren't they? Yeah, now then.
After Fred and assistant Neil put the final chock into the chimney, a bonfire of wood and rubber tyres is built around the outside. Fred does things the traditional way, and for him it's the best way. He's perfected his technique over the years.
We've got various, there's precious little literature on the subject of steeplejacking, but there are 1 or 2 books long gone out of print, with pictures in the 1890s of men doing work like this, you see, with propping them up on sticks. And the reason for this is, at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, when there were small steam engines and small boiler plants, and they were still growing, the surge for power, and they got bigger chimneys and bigger steam engines and newer and better premises. Somebody had got to get rid of the chimneys that were built in the 1840s and 1850s period, which that's where this method were developed, of propping them up on sticks and setting fire to them. But some say, and I have read in another Greek mythology book, that Joshua and the walls of Jericho, you know, the Battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. What they actually did were tunnel underneath and prop them up on sticks and set fire to the bloody things, you know. And that's how the walls came tumbling down. Same principle.
Finally, agricultural diesel is doused onto the bonfire to soak into the wood prior to the lighting.
Trouble there, first timer. Like. This is the exciting bit.
It's now 10:30 a.m. and a crowd of expectant people gather around the site. It usually takes about 20 minutes from the lighting of the fire to the chimney hitting the ground. Fred openly admits that this can be a tense time. It's always a picturesque sight to see traction engines on the road. Fred often takes his 1912 Aveling and Porter road roller to traction engine rallies. Fred's road roller was originally named Alison, after Fred's first wife. But following their divorce, the engine has been renamed Betsy, after his mother, because Fred feels mothers are more constant and reliable. Steam traction engines have to make regular stops to fill their water tanks. Many drivers, as they travel along, stop to fill up with water at fire hydrants, which are found along the roadside.
Okay then, Fred, turn it on. It's a stiff one, isn't it?
I think it's coming down the pipe now. We'll soon be with you.
There's a good kink in it there. And here she comes.
Pressure can't be very great, or it
Here
would,
she comes.
it would
Here
fire
she
through.
comes.
Isn't it?
I can a bit faster than that.
To take
can't
water
I?
this way is technically illegal. But Fred considers he's doing a public service by testing the hydrant and unblocking it. As he explains,
You're doing the local water authority a service, and the fire brigade as well, because imagine if your house were over there and sometimes these hydrants are full up to the top with muck, you know, and when we stop, we've got to dig all the muck out before we can get some water out of it. And if your house were burning down day after, and the fire, you know, the fire brigade arrived and we hadn't stopped there before, there were precious minutes wasted when all your valuables were being melted down, you see. The thing is, I can't see why anybody should argue, you know, about us just pinching a few gallons of water. I mean, we're very good for the tourist trade as well. And also, sort of, you know, the laddie who just gone by with his engine, he were in the middle of Lancaster one day and he snapped one open and top come off. And it was belting up in the sky about 20 feet, you know, and so water everywhere. sent him a bill for 20 quid, I think, or something. Safely tested, and we'll send our report to the fire brigade.
Right, take off. Fred loves an excuse to take his traction engine out on the road and enjoys the journey to the rally as much as the rally itself. He bought his Aveling and Porter steamroller in 1966 from a Welsh scrap merchant for £175. It weighs 13 tonnes and took many years to restore to its former glory.
When these engines were working for a living, you would hardly ever see a clean and shiny one. These were working tools, mucky things that would occasionally get a rub down with an oily rag, if they were lucky. The average day for a traction engine would normally start in the early hours of the morning. Just imagine waking up on a winter's morning to get steam up, ready for a day of hard graft in the fields or out on the road. From the lighting of the fire to having a good head of steam would normally take a couple of hours. So your average steam man would normally get the fire going and then retire for breakfast and a pot of tea. Then, when the engine was blowing off nicely, he would give the wife a kiss, put on his cap, all steammen wore a cap, jump up on the footplate and drive off in a puff of smoke and steam. And they probably wouldn't return till late in the evening. There are all types and makes of traction engines: Fowler, Burrell, McLaren, Wallace and Stevens, to name but a few. There was hot competition between these manufacturers to get orders for their tackle. And for many years, these factories were working flat out to get the engines to the customers. When you think that before the traction engines came along, most tasks were done by horses, it's no wonder that the order books at traction engine factories were full. These farmers and contractors wanted an easier life, and the traction engine was to them the answer. On delivery day, there are stories of farmers putting on their best suit and going to collect their new engine, then walking out through the towns and villages in front of the engine, chest stuck out as if to say, "Look what I've got." I suppose it would be a very proud day, taking possession of one of these beauties. They were also used as a tool of leisure in the fairgrounds. Many people saw their first ever electric light at the fairground, and the bioscope shows were the forerunner to the cinemas of today. Showman's engines would pull the rides from town to town, then assist to set the rides up, and then power them with electricity with the huge dynamo that is usually situated on the front of the engine. As the years went by, traction engines were being developed to do all sorts of tasks. Look at this, and imagine trying to explain how it works. The inventors of many of these implements must have had incredible brains for the times they lived in. And there again, I suppose that's why Great Britain was once the workshop to the world.
He's a good singer, ain't he? Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's quite a boy, eh? Bit of a wisecracker. I'm getting too old for it, really, you know. It's sort of the first 20 years are the worst. Such dirty things and all, and spew muck everywhere off. As soon as you finish cleaning it, it's as bad again after the first journey.
So why'd you do it then?
I don't like it. It's sort of a love-hate relationship.
Now just look at the weather here. It's amazing what 24 hours can do on a show like this. And the ground, there's no ground dries out quicker than the ground on this particular site. Now everybody's happy they can put on the biggest loads they can find and drag them around with them. Great fun. You always know where to find the biggest crowds at this show. And where could you find a more beautiful sight than those two engines working away in that sunlight up there? What a picture. Nice small engine there, the Evelyn Porter. You can always pick them out by the brass horse on the front, that being the county emblem of Kent, the home of Evelyn Porters. Here comes the Grand Old Duke of York, that famous engine that pulled the load from Darlington to Birkenhead, which contained the propeller for the then Ark Royal. A lot of history these old engines have, what stories they could tell. But they're still making history. That's His Majesty, belongs to the Searle family. From the Great North. That engine never left Yorkshire until about 3 years ago when it first appeared here. And a bit of local Portland stove. Now here's a fine old engine. The 1900, probably the oldest Fowler in preservation as a road locomotive anyway. It's the Pride of Wales, owned by Jim Smith from Rotherham. If you've got any doubt as to how much work that engine's done in the 5 days, just look at the funnel of that. There's not a lot of paint left on there. Listen to that, of Richard Sandercox. That's the 5 horsepower Burrow, the Conqueror. All the way from Climsland, Stoke Climsland in Cornwall, that's the home of Dingles. Pulling that very heavy transformer, not an easy load to pull. But on a day like this with the sun shining, everybody has a go at something, and it's a come along and crowd around the fence and see something day. Now, if you've got any doubts about these lads not knowing what they're doing, just watch this. You reckon they've done that before? Another bit of busy preparation. Joe's going to take the lead to make sure the crowds are kept back. He loves it. He's been to Germany and Holland and all round on that old bike, doing his bit of point duty for the steam lads. There goes the whistle. You're ready for another big push. Dave Allen, the show organizer of this section, he asked me for a suitable name for that load on there, and we come up with Ollie's Lunch Drop. And old Mike Oliver thought it was a great joke. He's a great sport, even if it's a joke on himself. But next year, there'll be another different load again. They try and vary the show each year so that there's something different. Well, you saw it, you heard it. There's only one thing I don't like about these videos: you can't smell it. It's a nice close-up of the motion of that engine there. Some were singles, some were compounds, some were single crank compounds. Very complicated life these steam owners lead, sorting out all their bits of machinery, pulling their trailers, pulling their big loads. There they are, going down around the bottom end now, ready to make the ascent again. The two engines on the front, they're doing all the pulling, all the working, but the one on the back, very important, because he acts as a brake coming down off that steep incline, and believe me, it is steep too. And these lads perform, swapping the engines round so that everybody has a go. They've all got their jobs just to provide entertainment for you. And if you haven't been to see it, you haven't lived.
I've nearly come to dying twice in all my 20 odd years of, well, nearly 30 years of climbing up chimneys. And this chimney stack, when we went to look at it, it was completely surrounded at the bottom with well, shrubbery, you know, the pussy willow trees and blackberry bushes lapped all around it, and you couldn't really get near it. Anyway, once we bloody acted all the undergrowth down, and we got to the bottom of the chimney, and when you look through the flue hole, that's where the smoke used to go into it. All around the inside at the bottom, it was full of water in the bottom, like a well. And yeah. Well, the thing is, all the brickwork were eroded away, and the wall had gone from like 2'6" thick down to 9 inches. You know, it had gone like from that thick of a chimney, you know, to 9 inches. So that's a hell of a lot of bloody weight pressing on this 9-inch wall all the way around the bottom. And of course, the thing were about 160 feet high. And what I've got to worry about is already on the grass in what had been all the undergrowth around the bottom, there were faces off bricks, you know, with the pressure downwards, boom, you know, it had blown bits off the outside, you see. And you think, bloody hell, you know, there's the chimney standing there like this. If I start to chop an hole in this side, the pressure on the brickwork round the back will become greater and greater as you are cutting and putting your props in. It's still going a lot more weight on back than there is on the timber, you see. Yeah. And it's getting to a stage where I'm thinking, well, even though there were miles off halfway mark, it's so weak down below in the water that it's going to go, you know, it's going to crunch, you know, crunch the bricks up that I've not cut out, you see. So the old boy who were helping me, he was like coming up to 70, you know, and I can run a lot faster than him. And so I said to him, Luke,
did you send him in there?
Gordon, no, did I, bugger it? No. I said to him, Luke, Gordon, you go over there and get out where work compressor is, and with about 3 lines of bloody pipe on compressor, because I didn't know which way it was going to go, you know. All as I knew, you know, you're going to run, but it's going to be hard to run. The thing is, on this side, there were a brick kiln with trees 6 inches diameter growing on top of it, so you could tell it hadn't been a brick kiln for the last bloody 40 years, you know. That side of it, where the clay pit had been, there were a big fence up that had red skull and crossbones signs all around top of it, because they filled it up with some highly toxic stuff and put some topsoil on, and they'd surrounded it with this bloody horses kept sinking in it and all, you know, donkey plonkers. So I couldn't run that way, I couldn't climb on the brick kiln. That way were impenetrable bloody blackberry bushes and all that. Behind it were the scrapyard from a forge, all lumps of iron and piles of cinders and all sorts of bloody rubbish in way. So it's a bit worrying, you know, which way you're going to run if it's heading for you, you know, sort of thing. The thing is that I'm stood round this side and the bonfire's in front, and we lit the fire round here. And I said to Gordon, you bugger off over there, and I'll light the fire here, and I'll keep chiselling while it's advancing round this way, the fire. And it had got to a stage where the heat of the fire were burning my leg, you know, still bloody drilling away at the brickwork. And when it's going to go, this big vertical cracks appear in the masonry, you know, in the brickwork.
And you can see
yeah. Oh, you put chisel on wall and just pull trigger, bang, once, and this crack will start, you know, instead of, if it were a garden wall, you'd knock a quarter of a brick out, like. Well, these are going like 3 feet long right upside a chimney, you know, and it's going, you know, like it's going to go, you know, so and I backed up and fell down this bloody hole 4 foot deep, you know, sort of full of water. And what it were like the chimney were there and the brick kiln were here, like I said. The flue went underground, and it was one of these types of flues that went right round bottom of the chimney and went in through slits, you see. And of course, all that had collapsed, so we could see inside where the water were. But back here, it was still a big arch underground. But kids had like caved in the top, only about 8 feet from bottom of the chimney. And all as it appeared to be on the floor were like a little puddle of water full of dead leaves and twigs and sticks about 3 inches deep. There were that much greenery on top of it, you couldn't tell how deep it was.
How'd you get out?
Well, that's it. I still don't bloody know to this day. The thing is that I went down this hole and I felt my legs going like that in the arch inside, you know. I thought, where the bloody hell am I going, you know? And I finally come to, you know, bottom, 4 foot deep, so I'm only a short ass character. I'm up to here in the bloody water. The jackhammer over my head, you know, they're only like little. Oh yeah, still there with rubber pipe on, yeah. Like a bloody gun, you know. Yeah, but only little ones, you know, like a PC9 is about, the body's about that big and the chisel's about that long. So, you know, you can haul one up pretty easy. But I'd say about 30 odd pound of iron altogether, you know. But I'm there with this and I'm stuck down the hole and the bloody cracks are coming in the chimney, violent in front of me, 8 feet away from here to that bloody cam there. I thought, Christ, I'm going to die, you know. And I don't know how I come out that hole, come out like one of them bloody torpedoes out of a submarine, you know. One of them rockets, you know, with a stream of water leaving me as I come out. And I landed on terra firma and I legged it down. I never saw a chimney fall down, you know. It just, boom, I heard the roar behind me. And we went back after and the bloody hole had gone, you know. If I'd like demobilised myself down the hole, it would just have been a rubber pipe going across the ground and, you know, just turning down under all this brick, you know. Bloody dead and gone, like, yeah. But I made it. I got out of the hole, you know. Yeah, I don't know how I did, you know.
Road making the old way. This is a stone crusher. Lumps of rock and brick put into the crusher, which then crushes it to a working size. When the rocks are too big for the crusher, a more traditional method is used. Contractors would usually leave home for 3 months at a time. They lived where they worked, in living wagons at the side of the road. It was a long and hard job, and the pay was quite poor. The early roads were just stone and brick, rolled until it was flat. Imagine driving your new BMW over this. Rollers were the last traction engines to work. They still had a role to play as late as the 1960s. Then progress came in the shape of the diesel road roller, and they were scrapped or put into preservation. It's interesting that the first 50 miles of the M1 motorway was constructed using steam rollers. It's always nice to see traction engines on the road. This burrow, named the Duke of Kent, is being driven by the late Steve Neville on his last road run before he died. A keen preservationist was Steve, who drove traction engines on the road more than any other man in preservation. Graham Love from Crouch in Derbyshire is another man who believes in driving his engine on the road. This Fowler road locomotive is named Excelsior. There are moves in Europe to stop these engines going on the road. Wouldn't it be a shame if we could no longer see a sight like this?
Now we're over to another section that I'm very happy to take part in as commentator every year. These are the miniatures in steam. They won't call them models because they are exact replicas of the real thing. They do every job that the big uns do in miniature. Same machinery, skillfully made by fine engineers. Most of these made in their own homes, in their sheds, some parts in the kitchen, no doubt. Many thousands of hours work to reproduce these exact replicas of the real engines. very fine section run by Ron Frampton. Two young lassies here on their way to the roller section. A little bit camera shy. There it is. Arthur Field's 50 Queen. Arthur, the late organiser of this section. Section now run by Robert Crabb. These lovely old rollers, Abel and Porter there, manufactured more rollers than any other firm. So they just stay there ticking over, rather bored. Can't come out to play today. Grand bunch of chaps, these roller drivers. They do everything that the old roller drivers used 2 years ago. They bring along their water carts and their roller vans. I remember it well when the old roller driver used to go away for a week and work on his engine, on the roads. It's not easy going, believe me. Here's Bodicea. That's a big McLaren engine, built in 1919, originally for heavy gun haulage. Still going strong. One of the most powerful engines on the field, a big 10 horsepower McLaren. Driven very skillfully by Martin Fagg. Great performer. Martin crouched over the controls there, dragging this old transformer up the steep. On a wet day, I tell you. Not an easy task, I'm sure. Will she make it? The power's there. But not the grip. Now a smaller exhibit, pulling a period trailer. What a lovely sight this is. Showing Martin that they don't all get stuck. Now here we have the spectacle itself. This is the big heavy haulage load that varies every year. This year they've got two massive containers on that center trailer. It's been appropriately named Ollie's Lunchbox, which is a remark leveled towards Mike Oliver, who is noted for his great appetite. Come on, lads, give it some stick. One behind to give a push, none other than Lord Roberts, Jim Sarney's big 10 horsepower barrel.
The odd thing about all this is that we only see Jim once a year. I'll see you perhaps a couple of times a year, and Paul the same. And when we all meet up, we all hammering shit out of our engines.
Yeah.
And I often think, I wonder what these guys are like at an ordinary rally, where all you do is clean your brass and do around the Grand Parade and go home.
Cheesed up.
Yeah.
Cheesed up.
Bored.
Yeah. Cheesed up. But I've got, I mean, from last year, see, I've got a nice personal song about me now, haven't I?
Yeah.
You see, now I don't know what he's going to get after this one as well.
Oh, Dan written on the back of me.
I'm just waiting for mine to.
Yeah. But if we left them all in a line-up, nothing would happen, would it? We don't come to the public. Gonna work the engines. Well, it all boils down to us looking for something to do, doesn't it? Yeah, we just try and find something to do all the time. That's what it is.
No doubt there's some criticism from the armchair preservationists.
Oh, there's gotta be, gotta be.
Well, by the time it gets to the RLS tent, it'll be as bad as the bloody Arrow and Wilsden disaster.
Yeah,
6 killed, 1 squashed. Boilers leaking, smoke boxes stoved in, and
Always something to do in this section. Didn't just pulling and playing with your engines. There's new ropes to be put on. And there's old Joe Davis. Joe, a retired police officer from Wolverhampton, who comes along and acts as patrol officer for the heavy haulage section every year. 72 years old. Now what's Jim got up his sleeve now? That's Jim Sarney going down there to sort out a problem. Lenny Crane over on the right, fine engineer.
Like a skating ring, isn't it?
What are you doing now then, Jim?
trying to wind this rope on the drum of this engine. It's a brand new rope, and to keep tension on it, you have to put something on it so it tightens it up when it runs onto the reel. It's more exciting a lot of the time, because you have to think how you're going to get rain these things. I mean, lowering that trailer down, you've got to think, well, I don't know, it'd be best to roll it back than go forward. So that's what we're doing, really. But it does cause more fun when it's wet in some respects, but you don't get the spectacular performances from the engines. But there we are, we can't have it always.
There's a terrific mixture of skills and hard work in this particular section, especially when the public safety is paramount.
Well, I just said to Nick down there, I said the difference is with the bottle there he's got, and the fowler, you just pull the pin and spin the drum out.
Oh, that's an acrobat, it's got a fixed drum.
Yeah.
These is the same, so you just pull that pin and run it out. It's just got a free drum on it. These road engines have got free drums, but an acrobat, so they haven't got free drums.
During the night there's been persistent rain, which has made the ground quite muddy and slippery. These are not ideal conditions for manoeuvring a steamroller out of a field, but Fred, with his usual confidence, manages to get Betsy rolling to start his long journey back to Bolton.